In the last 72 hours, the Central Intelligence Agency's entire human intelligence network inside Iran has been systematically dismantled and publicly executed. Their eyes and ears within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps missile program, their top-level sources inside the Natanz and Fordow nuclear facilities, every asset cultivated over decades is gone. Langley is now blind. So the critical question is not just how this catastrophic failure happened. The question is, what terrifying secret was Tehran so desperate to protect that it was willing to burn the entire American network to the ground to keep it? This is not a failure. It is a decapitation, an intelligence event so severe it has no modern precedent. The operation began at approximately 0200 hours, Tehran time, 3 days ago. Coordinated teams from the IRGC's intelligence organization struck simultaneously in over a dozen cities. There were no gunfights. There were no warnings. High-value assets were pulled from their homes, their offices, their cars. The speed was inhuman. The precision, absolute. It suggests one thing. Tehran had everything. They had names, locations, and communication protocols. They had the whole playbook. By sunrise on day one, the first reports began trickling into the Special Activities Center at Langley. They were fragmented, unbelievable. Asset, Scythe, a senior IRGC Quads Force logistics officer, missed his scheduled check-in. Asset, Helium, a physicist with direct access to Natanz's advanced centrifuge cascades, sent a one-word duress signal, compromised, before going silent. Then the videos appeared, released on state-controlled Iranian media. Public hangings, firing squads. The men and women the CIA had spent years recruiting, vetting, and protecting were paraded as traitors and eliminated. It was a brutal, medieval message sent in high definition to the world, but aimed squarely at one building in Langley, Virginia. The message was simple. We own the board. You are no longer playing the game. The agency is now in a state of lockdown. A full-spectrum counterintelligence investigation is underway, code-named Operation Shattered Mirror. Every cable, every source report, every communication log related to the Iran program for the last 5 years is being torn apart. They are hunting for a ghost, a mole, buried so deep inside the CIA's Near East division that they had access to the crown jewels, the true identities of the agency's most vital Iranian sources. The leak is not tactical. It is strategic. It is foundational. It came from the absolute core of the operation, leading investigators to a terrifying conclusion. The traitor isn't some low-level analyst. They are likely a senior case officer, or even higher, someone who held the entire network in their hands. This brings us to our first major rehook. A piece of intelligence just emerging from the chaos. Just 6 hours before the network went dark, Asset, Helium, the physicist at Natanz, managed to transmit his final, partial data burst. The file was corrupted, incomplete, but imagery analysts at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency have just finished reconstructing a fragment of it. It's a thermal image of a small, heavily shielded, underground structure at Natanz, a structure that officially does not exist. The heat signature is inconsistent with uranium enrichment. It is far too intense, far too concentrated. What was he about to report? What is happening in that bunker that required the Iranians to blind America's eyes permanently? The loss of these assets cannot be overstated. Consider the profile of a source like Scythe. He was not some disgruntled walk-in. He was an IRGC colonel, a true believer who had grown disillusioned after decades of service. Recruiting him took the CIA over 7 years. It involved a dozen case officers, millions of dollars, and operations spanning 3 continents. He provided invaluable intelligence on Iranian weapons shipments to proxy forces in Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. He gave the U.S. the exact shipping routes and schedules, allowing for multiple, precise interdictions that the media reported as mysterious airstrikes. His loss is not just an intelligence gap. It is a strategic blow to U.S. operations across the entire Middle East. Then there was Helium, a nuclear physicist educated in the West, a man who believed Iran's weaponization program was a threat to the world. For 5 years, he was America's only reliable window into the most sensitive aspects of the Iranian nuclear program. He delivered the schematics for their advanced centrifuges, the data on their enrichment purity levels, and the schedules for uranium hexafluoride gas injection. He was the reason the White House could state with confidence exactly how close Tehran was to a breakout capability. With him gone, that confidence has evaporated. The program has gone completely dark. It has entered a black box, And America is now guessing. This coordinated purge wasn't just about eliminating a spy ring. It was a carefully timed, strategic move. Tehran didn't just plug a leak. They blew up the dam. Why now? The prevailing theory inside the intelligence community is that the nuclear program has reached a critical, undeclared threshold, a point of no return, a moment so significant that any risk of it being discovered had to be eliminated, no matter the cost. They sacrificed their ability to feed the network disinformation, a classic counterintelligence tactic, for the certainty of absolute secrecy. This suggests the timeline to a functional nuclear weapon may have just collapsed from years to mere months, or even weeks. And now for our second rehook, a development that complicates this entire picture. At roughly 0400 Zulu time this morning, the destroyer USS Bainbridge, currently on station in the Gulf of Oman, reported a high-speed approach by 3 IRGC Navy fast attack craft. This is not unusual. Harassment tactics are common. What was unusual was the vector of approach and the electronic activity. The Iranian craft were not engaging in standard harassment maneuvers. They were running a pattern, a search grid, almost as if they were looking for something specific on the seafloor. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they broke off and returned to their base at Bandar Abbas. What were they doing? Was this a diversion? Or was Tehran sanitizing another front in this shadow war? This brings us back to Langley and the hunt for the Langley ghost. The counterintelligence team is working on two primary theories. The first is a digital breach, a catastrophic network intrusion by Iranian cyber actors that exfiltrated the entire asset database. This is the optimistic scenario, as it suggests a vulnerability that can be patched. But the evidence doesn't fully support it. The data stolen was too specific, too curated. It bore the marks of a human hand, not an algorithm. The leak contained not just raw data, but the nuanced, human-centric context of the operations, the specific psychological vulnerabilities of each asset, the secret meeting locations, the family details used as emergency signals. This wasn't a data dump. It was a betrayal. This leads to the second, far more terrifying theory. A human traitor, a modern-day Aldrich Ames or Robert Hansen, operating at the highest echelons of the CIA's Iran Mission Center. Someone who walked the halls, sat in the briefings, and methodically sold out every asset they were sworn to protect. The investigators are running psychological profiles, financial audits, and polygraphs on a shrinking list of personnel with the requisite access. The paranoia inside the agency is toxic. Every trusted colleague is now a potential suspect. The very fabric of the organization is being shredded from the inside. The investigation has zeroed in on the communication methods used to exfiltrate the data. It wasn't sent over conventional channels. Forensic analysis of network traffic shows no signs of a large-scale data transfer. The information had to have been moved physically, or through a highly sophisticated, unknown covert communications channel. This channel, whatever it was, left almost no digital footprint. It was the work of a professional, someone who knew the agency's security protocols intimately and exactly how to circumvent them. Just moments ago, a forensic team analyzing the last fragments of data from asset, Helium's device, made a breakthrough. Before his final, corrupted thermal image was sent, his device recorded a 2-second ambient audio file. It's mostly static, but when filtered and enhanced, a voice can be heard. It is not his. The voice, speaking Farsi, says a single, cryptic phrase. A phrase that was also a deep-cut code word used in a completely separate, now-defunct, CIA operation in the Balkans from the late 1990s. Only a handful of senior officers still in service were ever read into that program. The list of suspects just became terrifyingly small. And this is where the story pivots from a hunt for a traitor to a confrontation with a ghost from the agency's own past. The Farsi phrase, when translated, means, "The winter garden is open." To almost everyone at the agency, this is meaningless jargon. But to the 3 senior officers on that now very short list, it's the coldest of cold cases. It was the abort code for Operation Midnight Sun, a catastrophic mission in 1998 to exfiltrate a high-ranking Serbian general who was ready to flip. The entire CIA team walked into a perfectly executed ambush. Everyone was killed. The official report blamed a last-minute leak from a local contact. A tragic, but explainable, operational failure. But was it? Because there was one survivor, a junior case officer who was shot twice and left for dead, but managed to crawl 3 miles to a friendly checkpoint. He was decorated for his bravery. He became a legend within the agency, a symbol of resilience. That man's name is David Thorne, and today, He is the deputy director of the Iran Mission Center, the man in charge of finding the mole. And here is our third rehook. The hunter is the hunted. The implications are staggering. Almost unthinkable. Is it possible? Could the Langley ghost be a decorated hero? A traitor who has been sleeping, waiting for over 25 years, only to be activated for this one singular, devastating mission? Has he been directing the investigation into himself? It would explain why the hunt has been so fruitless. He knows every move the investigators will make because he is ordering them. But this theory, as terrifying as it is, needs more than a 25-year-old code word. And just as the counterintelligence team begins to dig into Thorne's past, a new piece of intelligence lands. Remember the Iranian fast boats in the Gulf of Oman? The ones running a strange search pattern? A signals intelligence unit reanalyzing the event just discovered they weren't searching. They were recovering. They were picking up a dead drop, a high-speed, underwater data transfer from a submersible drone. And where would a drone like that be launched from? A nearby surface vessel. Satellite imagery and maritime tracking data from that morning show only one non-commercial vessel in the launch area, a private luxury yacht named the Serenity, a yacht which, according to financial intelligence, is owned by a Cayman Islands shell corporation. And the ultimate beneficiary of that corporation, the sole person with access to its funds, is David Thorne's wife. But she isn't just an unsuspecting spouse used for a shell corporation. Cross-referencing her maiden name with older, sealed intelligence archives brings up a ghost file. She was a former FSB deep cover agent. Did Thorne recruit a traitor, or did he marry one? The answer, it turned out, was both. And neither. She wasn't an FSB agent who stumbled upon a CIA officer. She was his handler. The entire relationship, the marriage, the life they built over 2 decades, was all part of the longest, most patient, deep cover operation in modern intelligence history. The final play wasn't an arrest warrant. It was a trap. The counterintelligence team fabricated a critical piece of intelligence, the location of a fictional new asset in Tehran, and fed it into a channel only Thorne could access. They watched, and they waited. Within 6 hours, chatter from a known Iranian intelligence frequency mentioned the fictional asset by his designated codename. The bait was taken. Thorne hadn't just been leaking, he was still active. The hunter had walked straight into his own snare. Back in the room, Director Evans doesn't speak. She simply slides a photograph across the table. It's not of the yacht. It's a wedding photo. Thorne and his wife, smiling. Thorne scoffs. My wife? This is desperate. Evans slides a second photo. A grainy surveillance shot from 1998, taken in a Serbian field hospital. A young, wounded Thorne is being tended to by a nurse. It's his wife, 25 years younger, wearing a nurse's uniform that intelligence now confirmed was a disguise. She wasn't a medic. She was FSB case officer, sent to assess the survivors of the ambush her own agency had engineered. She didn't find a hero left for dead, Thorne, Evans says, her voice cold as ice. She found a disillusioned officer furious that his country had sent his team into a meat grinder. She found fertile ground. She found you. The carefully constructed facade of David Thorne, CIA legend, finally shatters. The fight drains from his eyes, replaced by a profound weariness. He leans back, a faint, bitter smile on his lips. He confesses everything. Operation Midnight Sun wasn't a failure. It was a recruitment drive. He was the only target. The ambush was designed to break him, to sever his loyalty to the agency he felt had betrayed him. His wife didn't turn him with threats or money. She turned him with ideology, with a promise that he could one day repay the bureaucracy that had left his friends to die. For 25 years he was the perfect sleeper. The Winter Garden wasn't just a code. It was a promise that one day, the seeds of his revenge, planted in the frozen ground of 1998, would finally bloom. The Iran network was the bloom. Crippling the agency's most critical foreign operation was his life's work. The final, brutal act of a ghost who had haunted the halls of Langley for a generation. A ghost of their own making. As he finishes, the door to the room opens. 2 security officers enter. Thorne doesn't resist. He stands, looks at Evans, and gives a single, final nod. Not of defeat, but of completion. The Langley ghost was caught. But the true horror was the realization that followed. Thorne wasn't just a mole. He was a proof of concept. The operation wasn't called Winter Garden. It was the Winter Garden Program. Plural. His wife, the architect of his fall and rise, was not on the Serenity. She had disappeared from their home hours earlier, leaving behind nothing but a single, dead winter orchid. They have no idea how many more there are. They don't know where the other gardens are planted, or when their seasons will turn. They only know that the deepest betrayals come from the heroes you create yourself. The front has been broken, but the war in the shadows has only just begun. The truth is a weapon, and secrets are the battlefield. To see who's winning, you have to look past the official story. We show you how. Subscribe to breaking_the_front.